So what would you say makes Diamond 6 unique as a business and the work that we do?
One of the things we try to do is follow a watchword that we like, which is learn from the past and prepare for the future. While I was dean of the War College, we always used Gettysburg as a staff ride, which is very traditionally military, using an old battle to take officers out for them to examine in case, particularly for an examination of tactics and operations, some leadership, but more focused on the military aspects. It always seemed to me that one could take that same case study and use it as a vehicle for people to think about leadership. So using past experiences. And over time now we've developed that in a more broad array to offer up other opportunities, whether it's Bull Run, Antietam, Pearl Harbor, the Alamo, and other things. So that was one thing. So using that as sort of our paradigm, what we've tried to do with multi-day leadership workshops is use one of those leadership historical experiences as a case study to examine principles and concepts of leadership. And then, if you will, on subsequent days, say, okay, let's look at contemporary issues of leadership that the organization thinks is particularly relevant to what their needs are. So stylize this for the client. If you're with the very senior leaders of the organization, for example, you might spend more time on strategic planning or strategic visioning or thinking where we're going in the future. If you're working with more middle management people, you might think about team building or effective communication. So it really varies based on who are the exact participants in the organization and what do they think is the organizational need. And then thirdly, look into the future. And we've also been very fortunate over the last very many number of years to have a close association with a place down in Washington where I'm a senior associate fellow, the Center for Strategic and International Studies. And they've done this fantastic program looking into the future, continually updating that, called the 7 Revolutions, and trying to say, what will the world look like about 25 or 30 years from now? So if you do a multi-day workshop, you've taken one of our experiential workshops like Gettysburg, looked at concepts and principles, then spent a couple of days or whatever period of time the organization can devote looking at contemporary topics, and then concluding by examining this very dynamic presentation by CSIS, saying, well, where's the future? What are the challenges of the future? And hopefully applying some of that knowledge we've gained on the first couple of days as we consider how are we as an organization going to begin to prepare ourselves for that emerging reality.
Right. And I think it creates a nice kind of, the word that you like to use often is holistic approach to leadership development, not just one view of it, one angle. It's really holistic, has this nice arc to it.
Yeah, and it takes advantage of our unique faculty who bring so much to bear and therefore can do diverse topics based on need. And secondly, it begins with a conversation with the client, which actually for me is one of the most enjoyable parts of the whole experience, oddly enough, and that is to sit down with the leader of an organization who will come to me and say, hey, we need some leadership development. And I always say to them, okay, well, you have to tell me what's the problem. Let's talk about what you think the problem is. What are you trying to address? Because we can't really tailor a unique workshop for you until we know two things. What's the problem and what's the participants look like? Senior leaders, emerging leaders, and with those two things in mind, then we can help you select the right mix of experiential learning and contemporary topics in building a workshop for you.
And then from that point, once the workshop has concluded, what I think makes us also very unique is the follow-up that we do with our clients. Once they're finished, we don't just sort of kiss them goodbye and never see them again, right? We follow up, and that's built into our process that 30 to 90 days or so afterwards, we do a follow-up and see how are things going. What did they discuss when they were with us? And did they follow through on the things that they said they were going to do? And if they did, then great. And if not, why not? And we're there to help them kind of strategically think through some of that.
It goes back to, as you and I were talking about what this looked like at the beginning, what it looks like now. And it's almost amusing to look at some of the sort of very basic things we did at the beginning and how much more dynamic we are now. And really, it goes down to that sort of organizational assessment, talking to the client to start with about what the issues are, and then determining what is the composition of the workshop going to look like. And then we prepare now a very dynamic resource page, which provides them a lot of material that they can have their people look at. So when they actually physically show up, or we come to them and show up on their doorstep, the team is really more prepared. But tailored uniquely to what that workshop's going to be all about. And then, as you quite rightfully said, and then meeting with them 90 days after to say, okay, this is what you told us that you learned. Because one thing we try to do every day when we have a workshop, as you well know, is have what I call the so what conversation at the end of the day.
Right.
And that is to say to the group, okay, here's what we did today. Now, let's take time over dinner or at the end of the day and have a conversation that goes like this. What did you learn today that you found was most important to you that you're going to take home and try to apply individually? Or what did you learn today that you think was most impactful for your organizations you're going to try to apply? And we accumulate those particular insights over the course of the workshop, and then we meet with them 90 days later. We say, okay, this is what you guys said was most impactful. What of these have you applied, and how did it work out for you? And that, I think, just is a matter of impressing and, if you will, underscoring learning with a professional group of people.